Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Infinity's Limit here, back again. Today we're going to be discussing Final Fantasy VII, which is a huge video game that everyone in the world has played, probably except for me. I'm one of the first like Final Fantasy VII virgins that's out there. So I decided to play the remake, and I brought along Chosen because he's had a lot of experience in the past with this game. So it's gonna be an interesting discussion. So pretty much, Chosen, can you just, tell me a little bit about how you got introduced to Final Fantasy VII?
Right. So, take two. Uh,
Yes.
so, how I got into Final Fantasy VII, the original, when it came out in '97, it was just sort of something that we put in the PlayStation on a whim. We heard about the hype. But basically, it was myself, my older brother, our best friend, his younger brother, and I believe one other friend of ours. So, I'd say it was five of us in, his bedroom, and we were watching my brother play it, and immediately we were not interested because obviously up until that point we had just been accustomed to games that didn't have any reading in it or or any kind of or very light reading, if any. At that point we're talking Street Fighter, we're talking Mega Man, we're talking Metroid, we're talking Earthworm Jim, Twisted Metal, all of these things that it's just plug and play. Enough talk, as Arnold says, right? So there came a point again. We played it that first night. We weren't interested, but for some reason, my brother was very interested from the jump. He saw its value immediately. We put the game down. We didn't get back to it for about 6 months. Okay, and when we got back to it, how do I say this? We played the hell out of that game.
Hmm.
Once you're in, and it's one of those things where I think it's it's one of those phenomena where it's like when you're into the like you know how it is. If it needs limit, when you're into a story, you're in 100%. I've been pushing you to get into Attack on Titan because I know its value, but I do know that similar with like Breaking Bad and shows like that, there is a bit of a there is a bit of a curve. It is a bit of a what shall we say, a lag, so to speak, where you have to get to a certain point and then you're in.
Well, the thing is, like,
Um,
I noticed that, like, for me, I've never been an RPG guy because, especially for part of the reason why I haven't played FF7 is because I could never get into stop and go gameplay. I could never get into that sort of combat.
mm,
And that was a big barrier for me. The only game that has like won me over that way was KOTOR, and I had to force myself to play KOTOR.
okay.
But once
Yeah. So,
yeah, go ahead.
oh no, I hear you. So, but once you said once you got into KOTOR, it became second nature to you, pretty much.
The second I got past, I think it was the first or second battle,
Mhm.
I sort of my brain almost kind of just like was able to like I got into it, and I am so glad I played that game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. With certain people, it's just a matter of preference. And speaking of KOTOR, we have to talk about that at a later date because there's some news there. I'm not sure if you saw. But yeah, so again, just to round out and finish the story, we got into it about 6 months later. We played the heck out of the game. We played it so much, and um, we were so invested in making sure that got every we milked every piece of side quest story out of that game. We bought the strategy guides, etc. I made a post after playing the remake that 20 plus years later, and Sephiroth is still the baddest man on the planet.
I didn't actually know you played the remake.
Yeah, and I'm replaying it now, actually.
Nice. I didn't actually realize you played that.
Yeah. So the thing is, they when we're talking about creating a villain, and we've talked about this when it comes to films, right? So
Well,
Sephiroth.
sorry, I don't mean
Go ahead.
to cut in, but don't say too much because I don't know that much.
Okay, so okay, so then let me ask you this then. Are you okay? Have you? I thought are you playing the original or are you playing the remake? Which
I
what?
have not played the original. Well, the thing is,
Okay.
I know certain bits, like I said earlier, because
Hmm.
like it's a cultural phenomenon. People just say things, and you just know. Like I know Aerith dies. Like I know
Yeah.
things like this. I just know because people just you hear it at lunch tables.
Right. But I guess what I'm asking is, what do I have to be careful of? Like, what are your plans? Have you beaten the original? Have you beaten the remake? Are you going back to play? What are your plans so I know what spoilers to navigate around?
Well, I have heard. I don't know exactly what it means, but I do know that Sephiroth is some sort of planetary threat level kind of guy. That's about all I know.
Okay, then okay, you should be fine. I think as long as you're not planning to. No, but even if you are, yeah, I don't think you really have to worry about spoilers here. First question is, have you beaten the remake? Have you completed the remake?
Yes, I finished it a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
and
And what
yeah.
what are the chances of you going back and playing the original?
I probably won't, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I'm just gonna go ahead and play these new ones.
Okay, you're gonna be fine then. You don't have to worry about anything I have to say. Because I don't even think I'm gonna say anything spoilers. But in any event, you're gonna be fine. But yes, he's obviously a threat. But the villain, we've talked about villains and and you have to somewhat create a villain that appears unbeatable, right? We've said that in films, like Darth Vader, etc. Um, they did such a good job in the original that you have characters and you can level them up, right?
Yeah.
We maxed out every single character. The game clock read 9999 colon 99, and it just stopped there. Okay. So we maxed out the game clock. I guess what I'm trying to say is we got everyone to level 99. You don't need to do that. But what I'm trying to say is on the first playthrough, because they had built Sephiroth up so much, and you saw what this guy did in flashbacks, you're like, okay, the only way we can step to this guy is if we max out every person. First go through. I'm not playing around either. We maxed Aerith was the first character we maxed out. And you know what happened next chapter.
Well, I
the
mean, the
next
thing is, I mean, the fact that they psychologically made you prepare
Yeah.
yourself to that level shows you just how strong of a impact that. See, I knew nothing about any of these characters, so I just wanted to round it up by saying like, the first thing that struck me about this game as a virgin, these characters are so amazingly interesting, charismatic, unique. Background stories are all like really good, and I want to know like as the game is going on, I'm just like, I want to spend as much time with these people as possible because they're so interesting.
Yeah.
Especially like, I mean, I don't know if it was like this in the original, but the way they portrayed Cloud as just sort of like he's like, a super soldier that defected and he's got like did he have PTSD in the original? Because he kept having like these headaches and flashbacks and like this
Yeah.
guy has been through some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. He did. He
So
did.
that was part of the like the way they did it in the original game.
Yes. Now they amped it up in the remake, and
Ah, I see.
I think they did a great job integrating it with the new stuff that they put in there. Because one thing that I think you know already, the shadow figures with the hoods, that's not in the original.
Oh,
And we'll
okay,
get to
yes.
and we'll get to that later,
Interesting.
and the genius in what they did there actually. Because now anything can happen. Everything's up in the air. So yes, that was part of it. Um, I'm trying to think. Okay, so I don't want to say well. So yes, that was part of it. But again, going back to the preparation, it just it showed their genius in how carefully they constructed the story, how careful they were with characters, and how they portrayed them. And the threat was real. And I'm talking about the original now. The methods in order to get certain things done was meticulous, and Final Fantasy VII, it was a game changer. It was a game changer for sure, and that was my first exposure to an RPG, and it opened the door, and I you know I went through, never looked back. So from there I went to Final Fantasy VIII. I thought that was okay. 9 I skipped completely. 10 I completed. I thought 10 was better than 8, and 10 was a good sort of rebound. And I think I stopped there. I didn't. I mean, I did went to the Final Fantasy Online for a bit. I thought that was cool, but I'm not a Final Fantasy head. I loved tactics, and I went back and then of course completed Chrono Trigger, then went to Chrono Cross, then obviously Xenogears, which I think is better than Final Fantasy VII, but only slightly. But yeah, that was my sort of gateway drug into the RPG world.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, I want to pick your brain on this, and I've been asking myself the same question. Why hasn't Square Enix captured lightning in the bottle like this again? And I think I have an idea of what it might be, but to me, the thing that I pulled away like immediately, like right away from the first, hour or so of gameplay,
Yep.
there is something about Midgar, the world that these guys created, that visually, thematically, the tone, the atmosphere, it has something really unique and interesting about it that I feel like this is a place that immediately grabs your attention. It's like, wow, this is actually like a really cool world. And even like just the fact that like in the first mission of this game, you're not really the good guys. Like you're
Oh
literally
yeah.
part of a terrorist group. But that was a
Well,
really interesting sort of twist on like, usually in video games you're sort of like the good guy, you know?
well, they view themselves as the good guy, like their cause technically.
Yes. Yes. I mean
Though,
technically, you know, a terrorist is a freedom fighter for their cause. So yes, you are the good guys in this case, as you find out as the game goes on. But I'm just saying, as a concept, it's not something that's normal for like, a game studio to do. It's kind of an interesting
oh yeah,
sort of twist on like the start of a game. It's like, wow.
oh yeah, 100%. That's why I say, it all comes down to story. So the writer of this, you can always tell when you have a good piece of writing that the author has lived. You get what I mean? It's like the author didn't just take in what was in his immediate surroundings and that's how he lived his life. That person got different perspectives. And you have to respect that. So yeah, yeah.
So for me, I mean, I feel like you said, the story was really important in this, and there isn't really a whole lot to it that I feel like. So for the most part, I feel like I understand what's going on in this world, but I have a few sort of gray areas where I'm not too sure about what was really going on. Because I know in the full game, eventually you leave Midgar and you go and explore a bigger world. So I think maybe with the second part, that's where they're gonna sort of fill in more of the gaps. But I think, for the most part, it pulls something off that I don't think a lot of games really do well, which is like it gave me a sense of closure at the end of a part one, which it did really well. But I'm also excited to see what happens next. And so the thing about it too is that like I'm not normally a Japanese RPG guy. Like I've always sort of been like a Western focused sort of guy when it comes to RPGs. Like, you know, Oblivion for me was like, well, a lot of people consider Final Fantasy 7 for them. Oblivion was like the
Mhm.
game that sort of introduced me to RPGs and stuff like that. So I think for me, it's interesting because you really do see a difference in the way that Eastern games are versus Western games, and I feel like it's much more of a like they really take their time in this to sort of give you the impression that these characters all have their own history, man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
going back to Sephiroth, I want to just say a couple things because I feel like psychologically they set him up so well in this because I felt like by the end of this thing, I was worried, man. Like the final battle of this game, I was like, these guys might not make it through. Even though like I knew like there would be a part 2 to this.
Hmm.
Just the impact of having, you know, such a 'cause I wasn't expecting to fight him in the final battle. I was expecting it to be like, oh, you know, this is part 1. You're not gonna actually
Yep.
fight this guy up until way later on.
Yep.
But the little tidbits they
Yep.
put in there, sprinkling him throughout the game was, I think, was a nice touch there.
Yes. And I'm 100% with you. I don't. Anyone who says they were expecting to fight Sephiroth at the end of part 1 is lying. Because, well, anyone who's played the original, let's put it that way. Because that obviously didn't happen. Which sort of leads me to what I'm kind of hesitant to say. Because it's one of those things where even though I have played the original, if you were to ask me what happens next, I couldn't tell you. And I think that is the genius of the remake. You said something earlier that I believe, and I'm trying to see if I can capture your words correctly, that you appreciated how they portrayed Sephiroth, how he just snapped, or what were the words that you said?
As far as well, are you talking about how he had the flashbacks? Because that's what I was referring to, I think.
Yeah, okay. See, I am very interested because I know, because you look at a character like that, and one of the things that I'm pretty sure the remake shows is that obviously he and Cloud have a relationship, right? So they used to work together. You got that much, right?
Well, yeah. So I guess I should talk about what I think is going on, and you can
Okay,
sort of
sure,
like give an idea of like how close I am. But
sure, sure.
from what I understand, yes, obviously, there was some kind of war, and these guys were recruited into Shinra, and they became super soldiers. And I believe they didn't show like too much of this, but I believe at some point this guy decided to defect and do his own thing. So I don't know if Sephiroth discovered what was happening within Shinra, and maybe he discovered what they were doing, what they were about, and he figured out a way to harness their power somehow. But the flashbacks at the very beginning of the game seem to imply that um, he did something to Cloud during one of the battles, and I feel like maybe he killed someone or someone that was close to him. And because the thing is, he is having such bad PTSD that he literally stops in the middle of the street and just like spaces out. So something really terrible must have happened between him and Sephiroth. So I don't really know what it was. I couldn't really pull that out, but that's
Right,
sort of what I feel was happening here.
right, right. Yes, I mean you're correct. Something did happen. Something big time happened, and a lot of times when you have a catastrophic event, your mind will block out certain things, and I'm dancing around it because again, I don't want to spoil it for you because it's a pretty big deal. Um, and we're both Dragon Ball Z fans. You mentioned Super Soldier. It's one of those things where it's like and again, I don't know if they'll go into this, but in the original, you find out that there are different classes of Super Soldier.
Yes, I
Just like
was going to ask because that guy that showed up at the end, he seemed
yeah,
like he was part of Cloud's team, but I didn't know who he was.
that's the thing. So going back to again, you have just like with DBZ, you've got super elites. Vegeta, right? You're born out of the gate. You're the strongest or the
Mm.
strongest class.
Hmm.
Goku was the lowest class.
I believe they even mentioned it because he said he was first class.
Who was?
Didn't Cloud say he
Cloud.
was first class? I believe he said that early on in the game.
Yes, and he also said that in the original. But the point I'm trying to make is when there is a traumatic event, you at times, and you stop me if I'm going too far, or if I'm saying too much that you would like to discover on your own. But there are times where you lie to yourself. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And that guy, and I'm glad they did this, that guy that you talked about that showed up at the end, I'm glad they put that in there because that tells me they're going to stay true to that piece of the story that I think is pretty damn important.
I see.
So we'll leave it at that. But um, you know, Sephiroth again. You know, one thing that I do love about him that I do not hear a lot of people mention. Because when you say Sephiroth, what you associate him with is that long katana blade, the evil eyes, the long silver hair, murder, just a straight up badass. But what if I were to tell you that there were moments and there were flashback sequences where you meet Sephiroth, and this guy is the most competent, kind-hearted, well-spoken, polite person you would ever meet. So then that begs the question, or I think it would beg the question is, what the hell happened?
That's interesting. That's so interesting because I did watch the trailer for part 2, and there's a scene where he and Cloud and Sephiroth are walking together, and
Yep.
I think Sephiroth is explaining something to Cloud, and
Mhm.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? How are these guys having a conversation right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was my immediate reaction after completing the game. I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah. So again, I'm trying to be careful with what I say because I think it's best that you experience this for the first time without spoilers. But it's just there's there are many things to pick up on there if you pay attention. Because, and I'm not claiming I picked up on everything, but I can only assume because I don't hear a lot of people mention this that it's not commonplace to pick up on some of those things that I talked about. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because
definitely, definitely.
I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. So, but yeah, I am very interested to see where they go from here because, and maybe when it's done, or maybe when part 2 comes out, then I can give you a little bit more because I will know what they're not going to cover, seeing how far they go with part 2 because one thing I do like is that as of now, I know everything that you know as far as where they're going to take this thing because at the end of it, it's so crazy and ironic because the characters now know what I know and what I went through on the original playthrough because they had that flashback. They had, or is it a flash forward technically? Because they saw how it ended. Does that make sense? They saw the meteor. They saw the final fight with Sephiroth. They saw Aerith's death. They saw the things that happened. So,
Oh yes, so there might be some sort of alternate timeline sort of stuff that may be taking place here.
Infinity's Limit. If you know how you die tomorrow and you know where you are you going there?
Hell no.
This is what I'm saying. But see, it's one of those things. I had a conversation with some podcasters on YouTube, and we all came to the same conclusion. Now, they know how it ends, so they're going to change up. But the thing is, it's not just the heroes that saw the future. Sephiroth saw that he got defeated. Kind of like Thanos, right? But Thanos ran toward it. I don't know. Okay, whatever. But you know what I mean. What I'm saying is, so what? One of the things that I love now is that yes, it's a remake, but part 2 is also appropriately titled because it's a new thing now, and the characters know how their story ends, so they're going to change up. So this is new territory.
So let me ask you this: has time and fate and all these themes, has that been part of Final Fantasy VII since the beginning, or is that sort of a new thing for this game?
Time and fate. No, this is new.
Because from what I gathered, those ghostly beings,
Yeah.
that was fate, right? They guide the way that things go.
Yep. Yep.
That is so interesting, especially the way that they visually represented them. Because it's like, see, I wasn't expecting, like near the end of the game when you're in Shinra and you're going up to the top and you there's that where Barret dies. I was not expecting that death whatsoever. And then
When who died?
when Barret gets killed.
Barret.
Yeah, when they go up to the top of Shinra and they find the president there, and I think he gets stabbed through his chest or something. I forget how he died.
The guy with the gun.
Yeah, he dies at the he comes back to life.
Right.
Because
Okay,
fate didn't agree with him dying at that point.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. I thought you got a different ending.
Is there something that's different about that in the original?
No. Go ahead. See that? No, well, yes. And again, I can speak to this because, we're past this point of the story. But, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse, how, I guess what I'm trying to say is the ones who survived died in the original. No,
Didn't
sorry.
because what happened for me, so didn't there was only one survivor for me, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct. What I'm trying to say is yes, correct. That didn't happen in the original is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, because I remember during that battle Jesse died, and a Big survived, and then wait, am I getting that confused? Did Biggs survive? I don't think he did, right? He died.
Yeah, I'm getting confused as well. I think he did die. Yes. But what I'm trying to say is it was the opposite in the original. So that's
In the
what
original.
made it. Yes.
I see. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I already know like what's gonna happen with Aerith, so I don't know if that's something they might change. But to me, from what I gathered from her character, in this, like that's also something that I was surprised by because the way that they gave her backstory and who she actually was, I thought that was kind of an interesting twist because I wasn't expecting her to be, what she ended up being, and it sets it up pretty nicely because I knowing the fact that she is like a one of a kind sort of person, and the fact that Sephiroth essentially kills her is sort of like they're setting up for it to be sort of a deep cut in a way. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way of setting up that character. But I just want to talk about some of the set pieces in this thing because I think this remake shines the most in its action sequences. And I don't know how that was in the original, but there's so many moments in this remake where, like, I just want to say, like, the presentation that these guys, like, came up with and how they use the graphics and Unreal Engine 3. This game is one of the best looking games I think I've ever seen on Unreal.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how these guys in Japan, like, managed to create such a... The game literally looks like the CGI films at points. So you have, like, the technical level of this thing is, like, outrageous already. Presentation is outrageous already. And just, like, I was immediately taken back by just how, like, the entire experience of this thing was. It seemed like these guys have lovingly created something here because it is obvious that this was like a passion project for these guys.
Yeah. Which is, you know, to some degree it's a bit strange because it's like, well, it's cool to be a passion project, but there has to be a demand for it to make sense if it's going to make dollars, right? So it's obvious that people wanted it. But what I find keeps happening with remakes and reimaginings is, you know, if the games are so much better now, why is there a call to redo something that happened 25 years ago? You know what I mean?
Because games aren't better now.
But that's what I'm trying to
Point blank.
Well, then why are that's what I'm trying. Well, then my next question is, why are we pretending that it is? Same thing with films. Why is X-Men 97 coming back? This makes no sense. We're in 2022. Why are you bringing that show back now?
Well, the thing is, I mean, here's the thing, man. I've always had this sort of thought in my brain about, like, story is like one of the most important, like, elements to anything, I believe. And some of my favorite films, favorite games, TV shows, if you have a story that is incredible, everything else sort of falls into place.
Yep.
It's sort of like the backbone of, like, almost like all entertainment. Like, if you have a story that is, you know, somehow touches people, gets an emotional response out of them,
Yep.
you don't ever forget that shit.
Agreed.
And, like, I mean, the way that people talk about Sephiroth killing Aerith, I mean, like there's videos on YouTube of people talking about this and, like, the whole, like, how it made them feel when they were a teenager. Because, like, back in the PS1 days, I think I was like, wow, I was like, I wasn't even a teenager, I don't think.
It hurt. It hurt. I wasn't either, but it hurt.
Yeah, man.
A lot. But yeah, I mean, you get what I mean, though. It's like, you know, expanding upon what you said, where story is everything, and it touches people when you make a good story. But it just, there's a deeper problem here because it's like, why am I not getting a new story that gives me that? Why are you going back to an old one and recycling it?
That's right. We only get one chance.
That's the question. That's the question, man. What is the Matrix? Yeah, that's the question. I've been saying that since the beginning. I'm like, of this podcast. I'm like, these guys made something so incredible. Like I was saying, like, before we did the second take, I was saying, like, you say, hey man, Final Fantasy 7, remember that game? People go, oh man, that is my favorite game of all time. And then they start talking and they go on and on and on. And I'm like, I've always felt like I missed the boat on this thing, and then, like, now I see why. Because this remake is like a 10 out of 10. And it's part 1.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like it's a combination of so many different things, and I think, you know, it's the core of what we talk about on Talkback sometimes, because it's like the psychological state of the time, the place, the people you're working with, the energy. There has to be a certain recipe to happen in order for like something to come out like Final Fantasy 7. Like it's like capturing lightning in a bottle, people say all the time. It's like it has to be a certain temperature. Everything has to be right. They have to have the right team, the right artist, the right everyone has to be in sync.
Yep. Yep.
And that is something that doesn't happen often, man. And even like now, I can't remember the last game that I played in the last 10 years that really has had any kind of real impact on me, really. It's,
Need to find a way to infiltrate that
you know,
room.
You'll hear the words coming out of your mouth. We just
I
gotta
hear you.
find that bathroom so we can get into the air duct. Ask anyone.
Yeah, I mean, we lucked out here. They brought a lot of the original key pieces, key players back. I'm excited to see what they do. And then again, we're just kind of jumping all over the place. But with X-Men '97, again, a lot of the key characters, the key pieces are back. And I'm not just talking about voice actors. I'm talking about the people behind the scenes. They're bringing a lot of that old team back. So I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it. And I'm probably going to rewatch the series before the new ones start.
You can't hang out here.
But yeah, it's a rare thing, and like you said, you know, there sort of needs to be a perfect storm where you have the right people involved. And you know, I believe the creative waters are so muddy now that that's very, if it's going to happen, it's going to be very rare and it's going to be very quick. I do not think, because even though, you know, you have the remake, it only covered a finite amount of disc 1, to be honest. And as you know, there are
that's
4
the crazy.
discs.
That's the craziest part to me because
Yeah,
amount of stuff that happened in this game. Like most games would just be like, okay, this is the entire game.
yeah.
There's so much that happens, and I'm like, just the fact that like I kind of wish I didn't know that there was a a whole separate world outside of Midgard, because people just talk too much sometimes, and you just find things out through like osmosis. But like I'm really curious
Yeah.
to see where it goes from here,
Just follow behind.
because if that is part one of 3, what the hell is gonna happen out there? Like I want to see what's out there, you know. And I haven't been this genuinely excited about a game in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to see what, because again, it's almost a different perspective for me, because it's like I know what's out there, but I don't know how you're going to update it. So it's a different level of excitement for me, if that makes sense. Like I know where you go after you leave Midgar.
Right.
You know, I know exactly where you go. You go to, I forget the heck, it's a town, a small town. And then from there, you go to the Chocobo farm. And see, the fact that I remember all of this is, and from there, I think you go to.
Don't say too much, because I don't want to know too much.
Right, I hear you. Okay, so it's just, but that's the thing. That's nothing. What I just told you. That's absolutely nothing. But it's again, I want to see how they update things. And like I said, part 1 of 3. It didn't even cover, like, we're technically not even past disc 1 yet. So what I'm trying to say is, if parts 2 and 3 are similar length, they have to speed this thing up considerably. There's no way you can go to all of the different places, have access to all of the different areas and maps and dungeons and boss battles and all. There's no way. It'll
Well,
be
you
like
gotta
a 10.
you gotta
10
keep in
parter.
mind though, like I mean, when it comes to game developers, like the Japanese guys, those guys work so damn hard, man. And the fact that like they've already established most of like the key fundamental parts of the game, like the combat is done. They've already, they're working with Unreal Engine, so they're familiar with the engine already. So I think, the fact that like
Pretty sure.
they've already laid the groundwork so well, I don't think it's going to be that difficult for them to kind of just do all this stuff. I think we're going to see.
I don't know. I'm not. No, Infinity's Limit. When you say all the stuff, you got to be specific. When all the things that were in the original, it's not possible.
I think these guys are going to do it, man.
It's not possible. It's not. Again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing, even.
So when you say not possible, are you saying like the scope of this game is so immensely huge that it wouldn't take, like, they wouldn't be able to have enough time to create a game of that length in today's climate? Is that what you're saying? Like, as far as like content goes?
Not in 3 parts. No way. Infinity's Limit, make a Watchmen film in 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing though. I mean, how do you see that not going down? Because I mean, how long is the original game though? How long is that game? Like, if you had to put a number on it, like, how many hours?
About
65 hours.
Yeah.
So the Midgar section of the original, how long would you say that would be?
The Midgar section alone.
Yeah.
Disc one, I'd say you can get out of Midgar in
I'm telling you, I saw him with my own eyes.
90 minutes to 2 hours.
We don't have time for this nonsense.
So this game, the remake was about, I would say, like, I don't know how long, I didn't put a clock on it, but I'd say like it's probably about like 20-25 hours probably.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an interesting discussion because I want to see how this all breaks down. So like, how much of what was in this remake was added versus what was essential? Because I know like there was essential plot points in this thing. I didn't really mess with any of the side quests. You know, I was trying to sort of mainline it, but so you're saying that the amount of stuff that's in the second and third discs, or however many discs there were, it would take years, like many years, to get all that out.
I wouldn't say years, but again, if you want to fit in everything in there,
Right.
man, it's got to be like minimum 8 parts or 10. I would say 10. That's if you want
That's
to
crazy.
get everything in that original playthrough. If you want to go to all the same places, if you want to have that level of detail that you had from Midgar, as opposed to the original, because the original didn't have that much detail of Midgar. You know, you had Midgar, you had the Sector 7 slums, you had the Sector 5 slums, but if you look at the remake, I mean, look at those locations, look at, you know, like the underplate, we didn't have that in the original. Like when we're going through the slums, we got, you know, obviously the pan down view, but man, what they did, and they created different sections, and then they added, you know, history of, you know, where the other slums are, and even though you never went there, that again, that I commend them for doing that. But what you did was, like I said, you took a 2 hour, and I'm being generous with time here. It's most likely probably 3 in the original, but you took a 2 hour location in the original, and you expanded it to 20-25 hours, like you said. So if that's one place,
Wow. See, I didn't have that sense of scope in my head going into this. So that's blowing my mind. I'm like, geez, this game is gonna be something else.
yeah.
You know what, man? These Japanese guys are crazy, man. They're probably, I think they're gonna pull it off, man.
Well, no, there's no question they're going to pull it off. But again, what I'm trying to say is
It's a lot.
has to be smaller. It has to be.
But isn't it so? It's gonna transition into more of an open world, right?
Again, I can't answer that. I can't answer that. It does in the original, but I can't say that's what they're going to do definitively.
Because I got the impression that Midgar was very like a dense city, and that was like a really big dense place. So I feel like a lot of the stuff was like there was opportunity there. But I know, well, I've sort of got an idea in my head of like what's next, and from people talking, it sounds like it's a lot of like you know, open areas and like smaller towns and less stuff happening. So I don't know if I'm on track with that, but that's kind of what it
But
sounds like.
are they based from the talk that you're hearing?
Right.
I get the sense that that's stemming from what their expectations are based on the original.
Head of
And
R&D.
what I'm asking people to do is curb your expectations
Kill the
because
son of a bitch.
it's
Not
it's
until he's led us to
it's
Eric.
not practical to what I'm trying to say is I'm I don't want any. I'm going in with realistic expectations. Would I like to see Yuffie's homeland? Would I like to see where Sid came from? Would I like to see
The people have
the
embraced
20,
the Wu-Tai
50 other
American
locations?
conspiracy
Yes.
wholeheartedly.
Ain't gonna happen.
I've almost come
It's
to
not,
believe it
it's
myself.
not gonna happen.
Wu-Tai's
If you
response?
took this much effort and
So far,
energy
nothing.
and
And if
had the
those
artistic
cowards
vision
do
to
react,
create Midgar in the way that you did in the
story.
remake,
Very well.
of course I'd like to see that with every single location. And if you came out with 20
If I may,
different versions, I'd buy all
there
of
was
them
one other matter.
because I am a crack addict. So,
A message from
but it ain't gonna happen. They've already confirmed 3 parts, so it's like, yo, it is what it is, you know. And I'm not even mad at him for it, you know. But again, this is all my opinion. I'm pretty sure I'm right at least about this, but
That's right.
it's
We
just
only get
not.
one
It's not
chance.
possible. It's too
Woodruff
much.
should be at that board meeting, so that'll buy us some time. We need to plan this. just
Interesting
right.
take, man, because it seems like that they're really going out of their way with this to sort of add to things. So I really don't know, man. It's hard to say because, well, this thing has already been in development for like, you know, part 2 has been in development for I think a couple years already. So I don't know how the timelines sort of work out on that.
Yeah.
But if the quality level of this remake shows me anything, it's like, man, these guys take their time with this stuff. And you know, they should, because I know this is a very influential and important game to people. But just want to talk a little bit about the combat system, because I think the way that they transitioned into sort of an, because it's an interesting combat situation, because like I know the original was all turn-based,
Yeah.
and they sort of done this weird sort of half action, half turn-based sort of hybrid. And I think for me, like, just discovering like the first couple hours of playing this game, the combat system of this thing is so freaking deep. I was like, what the hell? Like, there was so many things that I can do, so many different, you know, like just the amount of customization, the levels, and like all the things you can upgrade. There's so much in this. I was like, holy shit. I still don't feel like I've fully like understood the combat system in this, and I think that's one of the greatest strengths like of this game.
Find a way to infiltrate
And
that.
I'm curious to go back and sort of see if I can, you know, get some new summons and stuff like that, because I feel like I've missed a lot of stuff in this game. So like, how do you feel like, you know, was the combat in this sort of like pretty much the same as the original on a basic level, or was it like better? Like, how did you feel like they approached it?
I think it's better, you know, obviously. But you know, like I said, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. You do have the option to have the traditional turn-based system in this game, in the remake. But I didn't want that. So yeah, I'm with Phantom of Hope on this. I want to move around and swing my sword when I want to swing it.
Tifa,
But
be
the,
better if you
the
waited
you know,
inside.
sort of the bullet time, as you mentioned in that talk, I think,
Oh,
was great that they added that part in. So even though it is what do we call free range combat, there is still a planning element to it. Like if you want to switch to party member 2 and have that person heal X person, and then switch to party member 3 quickly and have program that person to cast a spell, and then go back to your guy and you know, go to town on the enemy. It's like that sort of planning is still there. So there is strategy still involved in it, but it is free range fighting. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think the combat system is vastly improved. That's one of the things they did update, in keeping with, you know, the original sort of fighting methods of the original game. So yeah, I mean, definitely better.
Unblock
Definitely
it.
better.
Right.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, you know, the combat in this thing was, oh my, it was so fun, man, to like switch between characters, and everyone had their own like distinctive style. Everyone had their own like move sets, and I'm like, man, like I don't understand how people can play one character the whole time. Because for me, I was constantly like switching around and using everyone's abilities. Because some of the fights in this thing are damn hard, man. Like that first battle when you're fighting that scorpion robot thing. Like this is like one of the hardest battles. Like I don't know if the difficulty level was like that in the original games, but that battle took me a long time to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, man. Some of the standouts, man. Like the sequence when you're in a tunnel, when you're driving in a tunnel, that was a big one. The sequence when you're on the train, I thought was really nice. That was a good sequence. The part when the part at the end, near the end, when you know, they're in Shinra and Barrett and all these guys, and they're all like about to get messed up by the security team, and Cloud just shows up on his bike and knocks out all those guys. But that was a good part. Final battle, man. Listen, I have a bone to pick with the final battle because these guys do not tell you how long that battle is going to go on.
Oh, yeah.
And I turned off my game after I got to Sephiroth, and you know what? I had to do the whole battle from the very beginning again.
Oh dear.
Because these guys, they didn't checkpoint you whatsoever in that battle. So you complete the entire thing.
And I keep calling and calling, but
Right.
I still can't get
But
I heard that all the phone lines are down. It doesn't
overall,
matter.
man, just
You sure?
as someone coming new to this, man, like
Pretty sure.
this world that they created, man, back in, when did this game come out? It was like in 98, I believe, right? Like in the late 90s. 97?
97, because I remember Xenogears came out the year after that.
97,
Yes.
man. You know, people say that 97, 98 was like one of the best years like in video game history. Like the amount of stuff that was coming out of studios around that time. Guys were just pushing the boundaries of the medium, man. And I agree. I think late 90s, early 2000s was the absolute height of video games.
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of games that were coming out. Like not just games, but games that were changing the face of gaming, man. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this game goes, because I'm officially a fan now, man. Because like I've always been sitting on the outside looking in, so I'm really glad that they took the time to make this remake, and I'm glad that, you know, the fans of the original are enjoying it as much as someone like me who hasn't actually played it before, and they're giving you guys enough stuff that's new, that's sort of piquing your interest, and pulling in both player parties. So I think, you know, that's a great thing, and you know, power to Japanese game developers, man, because those guys are a special breed, and you know, can't thank them enough for a lot of the stuff that they've given us over the years.
Oh, yeah. I was surprised you didn't play it. I thought you had played the original.
Nope. Story time. Well, I did actually rent it when I was a kid, and back when Blockbuster, you know, had games you could rent. And I remember I got home, right, and I think my friend lent me his PlayStation because he wanted me to play it. So I'm like, okay, I'll rent it. I think I had like, they give you only like a couple days. I had like 2 days. Chosen one. I got home, set it up. I opened up the jewel case, and I saw like 17 CDs Chosen ones. I closed the jewel case, and I'm like, it's not gonna happen.
No. Oh god, 17.
It was like 17 discs.
funny.
president. We still don't know for sure that the promised land even.
And yeah, who would have known that, like, Jesus Christ, like 20 something years later I would actually get to finally play it, and it was worth the wait, I guess.
Somewhat lacking compared to her pure-blood mother.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
for our purposes, she
But technically, I mean, not to burst your bubble. I mean, this is just a small taste. As good as the remake is, you know.
that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I'm not, and this isn't me in no way trying to tell you to go and play the original if you don't have time, but just know, story-wise,
She is a
you're only
precious
going to get
resource that must be
a
handled
fraction
with care.
Personally,
of
I've never had
the
a problem with
original.
torture.
And not story in the sense of they're not going to recapture the important points of the original, because I'm sure they are. I'm talking
Right.
about those. How about this? Again, going back to the Watchmen reference. When you watch the Watchmen movie, you don't get any under the hood, right? You don't get any of that. That's kind of what I'm alluding to here.
So you're basically saying, like, there's a lot to the undertones of the way they tell the story, and a lot of backstory and stuff like that that you don't really get unless you delve into, like, the deep, like, side missions and such like that. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Correct. Yes.
Interesting. I want to see where this goes, because I got the impression at the end of the game that there is something much bigger going on here, because it seems like it's getting into, like, fate and, you know, like I was saying early, time, and, like, if it's going where I think it's going, this could be a pretty crazy ass, like, storyline.
So the thing is, you know, like I said, they're going somewhere new, you know. So I don't know where they're going. But it is exciting because, like I said, it's up in the air now. They are all aware of how the story ends. So for me personally, it's going to be more interesting for me to see how the characters change up, and not just the heroes. I want to see how Sephiroth changes up. Because the one thing that's constant, that is not going to change, is that meteor coming. So
Yeah, I saw that flashback, and I kind of messed up a little bit because I watched the trailer for part 2 before I finished the game, and I saw that meteor. I'm like, I thought that what was going to happen in the end of the game. So I was like, oh, I immediately saw that, turned off the trailer, because I thought that was going to be, like, sort of the ending of the game. And I'm like, what the hell? How is this gonna be played out in this part 2? But I do have a couple questions. You can, let me know if I shouldn't know this, but just so we can round this whole thing out. So Shinra was obviously doing a lot of experiments. I saw a lot of crazy shit in that laboratory towards the end.
Yep.
And so that being that was being held in captivity in Shinra,
Yep.
I'm a little bit sort of confused as to what happened there, because it seemed as though, because you fought this thing at the end, but then it's like, okay, so Sephiroth sort of takes what was the name of that thing? I forget the name of that thing, man.
So I'm pretty sure it was Genova.
Genova, yes.
I think.
Yes, that was the name. So that creature was the same creature that was living next to me in my apartment. That's the same guy?
Wait. What do you mean?
Okay, you know that, when you first go into Midgar, you get your apartment, and then
Yeah.
in the middle of the night, you wake up and there's a guy next door making noise, and then you go check on him, and he's wearing the same uniform with a number on it as the guy that Sephiroth was holding when he broke into Shinra and took out Jadova.
Right.
Because you know when that happens, you're following, like, the ooze on the ground or whatever as you're going up, and you see him holding him or her or whatever that creature was. So I kind of don't want to know, but at the same time I'm curious because it seems like that was a major plot line that they didn't really go into in this. Like, it seems like it's gonna pay off much later on, because I know this isn't over. Because whatever that thing I was fighting in that laboratory, that was a crazy creature, whatever that was.
Okay, so you're asking what it was. That's what your question is.
Yes, but if it's too spoilery, I don't want to know.
Yeah, probably not a good idea. But
Okay.
at the same time, it's important to mention, I think, that that battle never takes place in the original in Midgar.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay, so they have shifted around certain fights.
Right. In fact, that battle, it happens, but not it happens in a flashback, but you are not involved at all.
Interesting.
Pretty much it's, and I can say this now because it's over. Sephiroth fights it off camera. you never see it.
Oh shit. Okay.
You just see him walk in the room with the head. So you know, yeah. So yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about that, to be honest. I mean, it's important, but it's not. You know, you've got bigger fish to fry for sure in terms of
Ooh, don't say too much, but that has me excited.
for sure.
Wow, man. You know, the thing that's blowing my mind is the scope of. 'Cause I had no perspective on this at all. Like, even like the major events, like when that plate fell, I was not expecting that to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Like the level to which, the level of evil that Shinra has gone to, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, man.
You okay?
You know, the themes that these guys are putting in these games, man, like, you know, corporate greed and just like, you know, there's a lot of different things sprinkled in there. I thought was really interesting, and you know, you don't get a lot of games that talk about stuff like that anymore. But yeah, man, I think that about covers most of what I wanted to say. Excited for part 2, man. I think it's coming. Isn't it coming out next year? I think it's next winter. It's supposed to be coming out.
Yep.
I gotta double check on that, but I really hope it's coming to PC, man, and not PS5 exclusive, because I can't even get a PS5.
Yeah, I can't either. You know, I'm playing. I mean, I had it on PS4, but the thing is, I had the older model of PS4, and that game is so heavy that it pretty much blew my HDMI cord. So, you know.
Did your PS4 sound like a jet engine?
No. It just stopped working. You know. So.
Oh
I didn't
shit!
know-
Literally stopped working?
Yeah. It blew the HDMI port.
I thought
So-
you were joking.
No, I'm serious. You look at
Holy
you can actually
shits.
see it. The HDMI receiver sort of metal prongs, they burnt out completely. So it's either, for me, it was either buy the newer version, the slim PS5, where I think they have the proper fan to cool down the system, or buy a PS5, and I'm like, you know what, I'm not gonna buy another system just for this. So no, if I was gonna buy another system, I was gonna buy a PS5, but I can't find one, so I bought it and I'm playing it on Steam right now. So yeah, so I'm with you. Hopefully it is on PC, so I don't have to. That's the only game really that I'm gonna buy a PS5 for. Seriously, this was the only game.
Yeah, I think they were talking about how they're planning to somehow integrate Unreal Engine 5 going forward. So I want to see how it's gonna look, because this is already like one of the best looking games I've seen,
Oh yeah.
and the tech demos I've seen for Unreal Engine 5 have been outrageous.
Yeah.
So
Playing around with it as we speak.
nice.
They got some crazy things coming, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, guys. So that's that was our breakdown of the Final Fantasy VII remake. I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to thank Chosen One for coming on, and I am very much interested to see what these guys pull off later on. Yeah, any closing thoughts chosen on this?
Yeah, I mean, a great talk, great talk. I know you're going to enjoy yourself either way. These Japanese guys, they rarely disappoint. And they started off strong here, so you know I doubt anyone's going to interfere with them on a creative level. This thing had great sales, so I'm looking forward to this and the final entry. But you know, and then of course, you know, I have to throw it out there because I do rank Xenogears ahead of Final Fantasy VII in terms of story.
You know, I've heard so much about that game. Is that what is that game on? Like, what platform is it on?
PlayStation.
PS1.
I'm sure. Yeah, PS1. But as you know, all PS1 games can be downloaded with like mods and what do they call those things?
Emulators?
Emulator. There you go, emulators. You know you can get it. You know, you basically get creative. You can get it. But yeah, I would love to see a Xenogears remake done. Because that's, man, I after finishing Final Fantasy VII, I said to myself, there's no way they'll be able to top that. And the very next year, Xenogears came out, and man, when I finished, Xenogears gave me everything that I'm missing from its X-Men, from the story I didn't get from Anakin going to Vader, and then back to Anakin. I missed it. I got it with Xenogears. Man, so much is in that story. So I know, again, I don't want to say never, but it's a very slim possibility that they will do a remake, but I would love for that to happen. And if they don't do it, the rate that I'm going, I might just make it myself. So, you know, great talk. And yeah, man, I enjoyed this, so for sure.
Yeah, man. We'll definitely reconvene when the next part comes out. But until then, appreciate you guys listening, and we're out.
Laters.